Our diplomatic editor, James Bayes, travelled to Bamiyan, which has seen an influx of tens of thousands of people.
Travelling with the UN to Bamiyan. It should take just over 4 hours to drive to this mountainous province, but the route is far too dangerous now. Once seen as the safest place in Afghanistan, recent violence has seen the UN recording over 47,000 internally displaced people in recent weeks. Bamiyan, without doubt, has one of the best hospitals in the country, funded by the Afghan. But the hospital has been overwhelmed by people suffering after walking for days through the mountains.
I left because the Taliban had captured more districts. When we came here, all the people were on the run. They were fleeing. My husband works for the police and wasn't able to come with us. I took all 3 of my children to get some help, but I received no help.
These are among 300,000 people displaced across Afghanistan since May. The UN's humanitarian coordinator fears if there's no ceasefire, things could get much worse.
My fear is, unfortunately, is something which gives me trouble to sleep. I think we will be looking at some of the worst tragedies which we have seen in the recent history.
We travelled in the UN convoy out of town towards the mountains, to a school built by the UN refugee agency UNHCR. It was constructed to educate children returning from outside Afghanistan. Instead, these kids all recently fled their homes inside the country. News of our visit quickly spread.
They thought that the governor is coming here.
I'm not the
These women desperate for help after abandoning their villages.
They told us that the Taliban are coming, so we fled from our homes. What could we do? We were in the Baba Mountains and walked all the way. It was freezing there. There was no food, so we were obliged to come here.
There's a reason people here are so fearful. There's a long history of persecution of the Hazara, the largely Shia ethnic group that make up most of Bamiyan's population. They remember the Taliban's harsh rule in the 1990s when they blew up the giant Buddha statues that had stood for centuries in these sandstone cliffs. The United Nations can only provide food and shelter when people first flee. But we met this group of families who left their homes 3 months ago and are now struggling, all living in 2 small rooms. One of the problems is that the UN's humanitarian appeal is desperately underfunded. They've received just 37% of the $1.1 billion they need this year. What we've seen here in Bamiyan is just a snapshot of what's going on in many places in Afghanistan. People on the move, fleeing conflict, human misery that the UN is warning could soon turn into humanitarian catastrophe.